In 1882, New York City, the wealthy industrialist George Russell relocates with his wife Bertha and their two children, Larry and Gladys, to a magnificent mansion designed by Stanford White. Across the street, sisters Agnes Van Rygen and Ada Brooke prepare for the arrival of their niece Marion, who is moving from Doylestown, Pennsylvania, upon learning she'll inherit a mere $30 from her late father's estate. Peggy Scott, a graduate of the Institute for Colored Youth, kindly assists Marion when her purse and train ticket are stolen. In return, Marion persuades her aunts to offer shelter to Peggy during the stormy weather. Agnes extends a job offer to Peggy with the condition that she informs her parents about her situation. Peggy agrees and visits her mother, who urges her to reconcile with her estranged father. At a party hosted by socialite Mamie Fish, Agnes' son Oscar and George's son Larry meet, and both are introduced to Marion upon their return to New York. Bertha, eager to establish herself in high society, organizes a lavish party, which Marion secretly attends. Despite her hopes, the event doesn't draw any notable guests, leaving Bertha vowing to seek retribution. Marion's lawyer from Doylestown, Tom Rakes, makes the move to New York City, taking on a new job. He doesn't hesitate to express his romantic interest in Marion. Peggy, on the other hand, is an aspiring writer, diligently sending query letters to potential publishers, but with little success as replies remain elusive. Peggy, facing a legal matter, seeks counsel from Tom but remains tight-lipped about the details in Marion's presence. In the meantime, Bertha endeavors to integrate herself into the circle of Mrs. Morris and Mrs. Fane, who are organizing an upcoming charity bazaar. She offers her ballroom as a venue, but her offer is declined, and the event proceeds at a costly hotel. In a fit of rage, she and George attend the bazaar, where George buys everything in sight, essentially bringing the event to an abrupt halt. On the business front, George devises a strategic plan with Alderman Patrick Morris. The plan involves Morris and other aldermen purchasing George's company stock on margin and subsequently passing a law to allow George to construct a new train station within the city. This endeavor holds the promise of substantial financial gains for all involved. George discovers that the proposed law for the new train station will not pass, and he realizes that the aldermen have been manipulating his company's stock for their own benefit. These legislators engage in a risky financial tactic known as selling short, promising to deliver shares at a lower price, betting on the stocks to decline. In response, George decides to buy back as much of his company's stock as he can, driving the aldermen into financial ruin as they are compelled to purchase shares at the now higher prices. Meanwhile, Peggy is presented with an opportunity to have her work published by the Christian Advocate. However, she is met with a series of racist demands that she cannot accept, leading her to decline the offer. Oscar, on the other hand, sets his sights on courting Gladys Russell, which doesn't sit well with his lover, John Adams. Ada, Marion's aunt, is approached by Cornelius Eckerd, who had once proposed to her but was rejected by Ada's father. When he learns that Ada has no personal wealth, Eckerd abandons his pursuit. Tom Rakes proposes marriage to Marion. She refrains from giving him a definitive answer, understanding that Agnes, her aunt, would disapprove of the match. The aldermen, on the brink of complete ruin, plead with George to cease inflating his company's stock price. However, he adamantly refuses to show them any mercy. This dire situation leads Alderman Morris to take his own life. George extends a helping hand to the Fanes, offering assistance in recovering the money they lost during the stock debacle. However, there's a condition attached. Aurora must assist in introducing Bertha to the elite circles of old money and high society. Peggy's writing talents catch the attention of Thomas Fortune, the editor of the New York Globe, who not only expresses keen interest in her work, but also commissions her to craft an article focusing on political affiliations. During a walk, Ada's dog escapes and ends up in Gladys's care, allowing Bannister a chance to experience life in the Russell mansion. Sylvia Chamberlain, a widow, finds herself haunted by rumors of her past involvement with her late husband, sparking her quest to establish a friendship with Marion. Turner, Bertha's lady's maid, fails in her attempt to engage in a romantic relation with George. Bridget confides in Mrs. Bower, disclosing a painful past in which she was sexually abused as a child, and her mother failed to protect her. A visit to Brooklyn takes an unexpected turn when Peggy becomes embroiled in a heated argument with her father. The situation becomes even more complex as Marion arrives unannounced, carrying a bag of used shoes as a gesture, inadvertently causing offense to the Scotts. Marion crosses paths with Tom while attending a Red Cross concert. She insists that, before she can consider his marriage proposal, he must first win the favor of her aunts. George convinces Bertha to include Gladys's new suitor, Archie Baldwin, at their dinner. Marion's assumptions about Peggy's family still sting. Mrs. Armstrong checks on her sick mother in a small apartment. Bertha seeks Ward McAllister's help in her quest for social ascent. Aurora, Bertha, Marion, and Tom venture to Dansville to attend Miss Barton's Red Cross branch inauguration. Peggy accompanies them to write an article and oversee Marion, as Agnes requested. Miss Barton acknowledges how the wealthy leverage charity for status. Tom kisses Marion, but Peggy deliberately intervenes. Privately, Peggy confides her forbidden love, disapproved by her father, to Marion. Marion apologizes for her misguided charity assumption. Oscar recruits Miss Turner as a spy in his pursuit of Gladys. George presents Archie with an ultimatum: embrace a lucrative role and cease courting Gladys, or decline and forsake a finance career. Archie departs. Richard Clay arrives, bearing news of a train derailment near Milbourne, Pennsylvania, with an uncertain casualty count. George and Bertha brace to address the impending crisis. Following 5 confirmed fatalities, George investigates the train derailment's cause, revealing that someone from within his company had substituted inferior axles for new ones. Bertha secures a seat on the Red Cross board, infuriating Anne Morris. Peggy's interview with Claire Barton boosts Globe subscriptions. Gladys and Carrie Astor bond at Mamie Fish's party, with Carrie offering advice for Gladys' debutante ball. Marion manages the secret of Larry's job prospects as an architect while soliciting a Red Cross donation from Mrs. Chamberlain, who validates rumors about her and her husband. Bertha hires Van Rygen Butler Bannister for an English-style luncheon for Ward McAllister, upsetting Russell family Butler Church. Bannister fabricates excuses, but Agnes uncovers the truth via an anonymous note. She interrupts the luncheon, eventually leaving amidst confrontation. Armstrong observes Oscar's meeting with Turner outside the Russell residence and informs Agnes. Bertha discovers a railroad worker's claim that George sanctioned the use of subpar axles. George reveals his vision for an electric-powered train station. Larry requests permission to study architecture, initially denied by George, who later reconsiders. Bertha schedules Gladys's debutante ball. George faces potential manslaughter charges in connection to the crash. Agnes dispatches Marion to notify Bertha of Turner's alleged affair, withholding Oscar's name. Bertha catches Turner flirting with Larry, leading to her immediate dismissal. Marion persistently advocates Tom as a suitable husband for Agnes, but her efforts prove futile. The city prepares for Thomas Edison's electric power distribution ceremony, featuring the activation of his Pearl Street generating station. Marion is left at home as Bertha opts to include Tom and Sissy Bingham, rumored illegitimate daughter of Henry Flagler, in her party. Peggy attends the event with Fortune. Edison illuminates his electric lights, leaving everyone in awe. George readies himself for the upcoming trial, while Bertha diligently plans Gladys's debutante party. Oscar journeys to Newport with the Russell family in pursuit of Gladys, but John Adams thwarts his advances out of spite. Aurora voices her suspicions about Tom, yet Marion decides to accept his proposal and plots an elopement. Watson, George's valet, introduces himself as Collier to Mrs. Fleur McNeil, who hastily departs. Miss Armstrong intercepts a letter from Tom to Peggy, compelling Peggy to reveal that she had a stillborn son and an annulled marriage imposed by her father. Agnes declines to fire Armstrong, prompting Peggy's resignation. Bridget discovers Jack at his mother's grave, where he recounts the estrangement or deaths of his family members. Through Marion, George Russell learns of his stenographer, Miss Ainsley, and George Dixon's scheme to frame him for negligence, resulting in the dismissal of charges. McAllister takes Bertha to visit Mrs. Astor's Grand Newport home while she is away, but an early return forces Bertha's hasty exit through the back door, subjecting her to indignity. Bertha pays a visit to Mrs. Astor but faces a snub, leading to her revoking Carrie's invitation to Gladys's debutante ball. A furious Carrie gives her mother the cold shoulder. Marion prepares for an elopement with Tom, with assistance from Peggy and Sylvia. Under the threat of exposure, Monsieur Bourdain admits to George that he's, in fact, a French-trained chef from Wichita, Kansas, named Josh Bourdain. Despite George's protests, Bertha terminates his employment. On the elopement day, Tom stands up Marion, now intent on marrying into wealth. Peggy discovers her son is alive and has been adopted. She and her mother head to Philadelphia to locate the child. George and Bertha employ various strategies to attract the old money elite to their ball. Mrs. Astor reconciles with Bertha, attending the ball and convincing her friends, including the Van Ryn Brooks, to come. The ball faces near disaster when Borden's replacement gets intoxicated, but Borden returns on short notice and is reinstated by George. The ball proves successful, and Ada reassures the heartbroken Marion that better days are ahead.